Hello duelists, it's Tombox and Cactom. So I'm going to give you guys my 2017 Banlist prediction. Hey guys, so I am going to be giving you guys my Banlist prediction for 2017, but let's think about 2016's August list and go on from there. So the format itself, we know that it's always been about making unbreakable turn 1 boards. It's a bit die rolly because if you do go first, you open a good hand, your opponent's gonna suffer a lot and they're gonna have to play out of your board. Basically, you set up your puzzle and they have to break it. It's getting a bit stale, to be honest, and we know that that's the truth. It's gone to the point where a lot of people are teching in kaijus, they're teching in Ghost Reaper, Winter Cherries, just so that it can't happen. This is the main board we're talking about, and it's happening not just at competitive events, but even at locals, where just too many of these decks are just so rampant, and I guess it's a bit too much, and now it's time for it to stop. Now, we know that in 2017, it gets even worse. We get Zodiac. Ugh. Zodiac Beast. Zodiac, I really hate that name. But we get Zodiac Beast. We know from OCG land that that deck is tier 0. It's dominating over all the decks because one card exceeds. What are you doing? And it's a combo deck. Let's just say it's going to be pretty rough, but knowing that tier 0 formats do kill off a lot of the player base, especially because it doesn't appeal to like players that don't have as much money to invest into the game, it's going to hurt them, and if they feel like they can't compete, they will leave. And knowing from the past results of Dragon Ruler format, Baby Dragon Ruler format, a lot of the players left. Like, believe me, I played Dragon Ruler, so I didn't leave, but like if I didn't play Dragon Rulers, I think I would have left too, because the format was pretty degenerate and you're basically not punished for doing whatever you want. Tier 0 decks are like that. It's just that other decks can't keep up with it, and if they can't keep up, why compete at all? So hopefully in TCG, they've learned from their mistakes so that they would lower the consistency of these unbreakable boards, and that's the angle where I'm attacking for this Banlist prediction, and I'm hoping that maybe this is actually the right angle to go with, because otherwise we're going to have a very, very interesting Zodiac variant format in 2017. So let's get into the list. Starting off with the ban stuff. So who do you want to ban, Cactar? Seems like the first guy to go is Norden. Well, Norden has been predicted many times before, and you know, it didn't really take a hit. And Norden obviously is a very powerful card. You can use it through instant fusion, and it will act as a monster reborn per se to revive one of your level 4 or lower monsters. So in other words, you can do Xyz plays with it. You can do synchro plays if you revive tuners. It is overall a very, very powerful monster. But what really pushed it over the top now is because it is a water attribute monster. It can overlay into Bahamut Shark. And for water decks that do run level 4 waters, you get access to Bahamut Shark, which goes into totally awesome. And it was already very powerful before, but now pushing that forward is just a bit too much, I would say. And OCG already has it banned, although we can't really take OCG as precedent. But some of the stuff do kind of roll over, so this is one that I'm guessing is going to move forward. And not only that, this card does push your combos further. And speaking of the unbreakable board situation I mentioned earlier, this card does push that forward too. It's like you couldn't complete your combo, but you ditch a few pieces into the graveyard. You're playing instant fusion. Immediately you can keep going. And Zodiac Beast definitely can take advantage of this too. If you dump a Momo Rat into the graveyard, you revive with that instant fusion. Oh my god, Norden will revive it, and now it's going to go off again, and then eventually it'll get overlaid with the Norden too, and that's just mind-blowing. That's way too much. Next up, what do we have? Level Eater! Now, there are degenerate decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Konami always deals with it, and Level Eater is the centerpiece of this one, Dark Synchro. Dark Synchro was a very, very one-sided, one-player deck, almost solitaire level, you would say, because this deck ripped apart your hand. Really effectively, I would say. Although the consistency sometimes, you know, a bit iffy, but it did not allow your opponent to play, and that's the worst part, where hand loops are always a thing that always dies off in most formats, and this is the centerpiece. I'm expecting 1 or 2 pieces of Dark Synchros to actually go. This deck is what, triple Omega, easily just rip your hand apart, even throw a Trishula on board. I know my buddy Calvin, who played at Seattle Regional not too long ago, he burned out all 15 cards of his extra deck because of Level Eater, and he just went off with his combo, trished the guy twice because he cycled it back in. I don't know why, he just ripped the other guy's hand apart. So this card needs to go, just following OCG a bit, but it's definitely killing off a degenerate deck, so it's okay. Alright, time for limited cards. Of course, we're all interested in what should get limited, what shouldn't. You know, we don't want to kill the deck completely, but yeah, technically we do, but we're giving you a bone to play one copy of it. Let's start with the most obvious one, Speedroid Terratop. Why is this one the obvious one? Because this one actually has a lot of tells of why it's going to get hit. First of all, let's compare it with another similar card, Tour Guide of the Underworld. Except the Tour Guide, you have to normal summon it to summon out a level 3 Fiend out of the deck, and then you can overlay with it. Okay, sounds pretty similar to Speedroid Terratop. You special summon this card onto the field, you search yourself a Taketomborg, or Tiktomborg, whatever you want to call it, and then you special that onto the field from your hand, and then you can overlay with it into a level 3. Very similar conditions for both of these cards. Tour Guide's at 1, Terratop's at 3. But another tell of why this one is probably going to get hit is because we just got the ultimate rare version of this card in a tournament pack. Well, what's this card called? OTS pack. Yes, OTS pack. Tour Guide got an not OTS, but Astral pack ultimate rare. And then a couple months later, it got slashed. Okay, well, Terratop now just got his, so there is a chance, following the same rules of Tour Guide, that it's also going to hit in the exact same way, which really kind of sucks. But the card is very powerful, and not only that, it facilitates some of Zodiac's most powerful combos on turn 1. You special it out, go into, rather than Dante, you're going to Invoker, and even speaking of Dante, like, Terratop summons so many Dantes over the 2016 format anyway, so you kind of get the idea why this card needs to go to 1. It's a free summon, free search, and like, oh, but hey, Tombox, but what if you open the Taketomborg? Well, I'll say the same thing. Like, Tour Guide, if you open with like, what, your others, like your Sanghun or your Tour Guide, you're not going to play it. You're still going to play it because the summon's still free and you can still plus off of it if you really wanted to. Alright, for the second card, I have Terraforming. Why am I saying Terraforming should go to 1? But it's just because lately most of the field spells that have been coming out in the game has been exceedingly powerful. Almost a win condition on its own. Like Union Hanger for ABCs, Cosmo Town will get the ultimate consistency and the ultimate recovery from these cards, and making them searchable from 3 up, you're basically playing triple upstart at one point. But I think Union Hanger is the one that's really pushing it, because once you search Union Hanger, you play it again, you thin out your cards by 2. So this one Terraforming is actually thinning out your cards by 2. And a lot of other cards do it too, like Sky Iris. You Terraforming into a Sky Iris, and then, well, you pop a card, you search another card. You're thinning your deck off a lot, and you're getting a level of consistency, protection, or recovery. I know we only have 1 field spell slot, but that doesn't mean that these cards should be that powerful and that easy to access. So most of these decks that do play Terraforming are capable of setting up difficult boards for your opponent to handle, and that's a bit too much. Hitting Terraforming will just knock them all out without removing the source card itself, which is a bit better, so that they will actually have to put a bit more effort into their deck building. Another 1 card, I guess this one's pretty obvious. Psyframe Lord Omega needs to go to 1 because no one likes Triple Omega for one thing. Triple Omega is a very degenerate strategy to use against your opponent, but it is seeing a lot of play from like the Shiranui Zombie decks. You're seeing it from, I guess, Dark Synchros. You might just see it from even Psyframe. Well, Psyframe can't set it up like that, but you get the idea of all the decks that are capable of setting them up using like a Brilliant Fusion plus something else. Obviously, no one wants to deal with it, because if you don't open with a Max C or even a Veiler, you're getting heavily punished for just not opening well. And since having Triple Omega just makes it almost impossible for your opponent to even play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, that is a level of degeneracy that Konami probably does not stand for. Next card I'm predicting is a bit iffy because it's a floodgate card, but I don't see it mattering too much because it only affects certain types of decks. The card I'm thinking about is Antistall Fragrance, putting that at 1. The card itself does shut down the pendulum matchup pretty hard, and unless they already have a quick play spell trap removal, they're not going to be able to get rid of it, especially because most of these pendulum decks, they use Eccentric Archfiend to replace MST, for instance, except Metal Foes. Metal Foes will still run MST just to play the combination combo, but most of the other decks, you need like a Twin Twister, Cosmic Cyclone, or an MST. If they don't open with it, they basically lose at least 2 turns worth of tempo because they need to set it if they draw it later on, and then they need another turn to actually flip to get rid of it, or they need to go into Xyz to actually kind of hit the back row. But if you have traps and you interrupt that, they're always going to be 1 turn behind. You know, this one's a bit iffy for me, but I am predicting this one's going to 1 just because it is also one of those floodgate cards that are absolute blowouts, like Skill Drain. Now this next card is going up to 1, is Sanghun. Why are you even on this list, Sanghun? It's probably because we haven't gotten your errata yet. I'm expecting you to be coming out in an errata very soon. Sanghun's probably not doing very much, although I would like to see Sanghun just because you can end phase, maybe search a hand trap, so the game gets a little bit more interesting. So Sanghun maybe will do something, maybe won't. OCG put Sanghun at 3 already because I guess it had no impact. So I would like to see Sanghun come to maybe 1 just to test the waters. Like how usually when Konami brings a card back, they put it at 1, 2, and then 3, or sometimes 1 straight to 3 because they have no impact whatsoever. And Sanghun, I think you're okay coming back. All right, next up we have semi-limits. Now semi-limits are, well, Konami doesn't want to hit it too hard, or maybe it's just a consistency issue, or they just want to kind of test the waters on certain things. And I'm going to start off with one that most people would have guessed already that I always predict, is Solemn Strike. Mainly because, first of all, Solemn Brigade cards follow a pattern and a tradition of going from, especially the good ones, they go from 3 to 2 to 1, and then they just stay at their current level. Solemn Strike is at 3, and it is actually one of the key pieces to the Unbreakable board puzzle. If you have Solemn Strike and they don't have any way of answering it in the back row, because right now the format is extremely monster-centric. If you can counter the monsters, you're okay. The only deck that's really against this philosophy of being monster-centric would be Paleozoics because they're trap monsters and they're immune to monster effects. Now a skilled player probably wouldn't mind seeing this card staying at 3 because, well, they can obviously read it and play around it, and that's how most of the top tier players do. They know that there's a Solemn in the back, they don't want to run into it, they do a more conservative play to burn off the Solemn Strike before they actually engage into their main play, or they have enough to recover from a Solemn. As for other players that aren't as good in reading the back row, they obviously run into Solemn Strike at the worst possible moment, and they curse this card quite a bit. They are like, oh my god, of course you have Solemn Strike. Well, I run 3 in the deck. It's not too hard to actually dig it out. But that's the thing. This card makes it very hard for a lot of people to play. But testing the waters, you can actually put the Solemn Strike at 2. Konami is definitely trying to push forward a different kind of line of traps for us as players to play. The next card I'm predicting that will be going to 2 will be Allure of Darkness. Though this is backed by... Allure of Darkness is right now supporting a lot of dark decks, and a lot of high tier dark decks for that matter. Dark Synchro is one. We have the newly released Dark Lords. Dark Lords is having a great day. It's just so much draw power in that deck, and just the setup is super easy and consistent right now. And then there's also, I guess, Cosmos are still using it too because they can recover most of the cards with Cosmo Town. Although Cosmos kind of, past their prime, but still worth a mention. And there's a lot of other dark decks, probably not high tier enough for us to warrant a hit, but it's the main 3 decks here that really kind of benefit off of this Allure of Darkness being at 3. While one deck's degenerate, the other deck is getting a lot of consistency, and we are trying to, I guess my prediction angle is to lower the consistency level of these decks. So putting Allure to 2, gotta fill it with something else. Another deck that definitely deserves a hit is ABCs. Now ABCs actually was a very difficult one for me to kind of go at. Like, should I hit ABC Dragon Buster? Should that go to 1? Should it Union Hand go to 1? But hitting these cards actually full on kill the deck. And we already know this, like Konami hasn't been following a trend of killing decks anymore. Like, look at Monarchs. Although Monarchs took a serious hit, Monarch is still technically playable. And like, you still have triple domain, so Domain Monarch is still a thing. So their core deck is available. Is ABC actually going to keep their core? And hitting Union Hanger will kill the deck basically. If you put Union Hanger at 1, putting it at 2 doesn't do anything. Putting it at 1 really kills it because the moment you get MST, the game is basically a struggle. Hitting ABC Dragon Buster to 1, well, if you put it at 1, it's gonna suck because there's nothing really to tag into anymore and the deck is basically dead. And then you can leave it at 2. 2 is okay. 2 is actually a possibility because now you can't go triple ABC Dragon Buster. You gotta conserve your resources a bit more. But rather, I'm thinking more of hitting every ABC pieces to 2. It kills 3 cards out of the deck. So in other words, consistency is gone. If you play Pot of Desires, higher risk as well. And if you manage to keep your combo going, you got your combo going. But this also hurts Union Hanger too. So because this way, Union Hanger has like basically a shorter expiry time because you'll run out of your pieces much quicker. Especially if you do play Pot of Desires and you lose like one or two pieces and you realize, hey, I can only make 1 Dragon Buster, and it just becomes a lot harder. That's why I'm not going with hitting the field spell or the boss monster. So, well, there's one card I'm predicting going back to 2, and that's going to be Book of Moon. Book of Moon is actually a very effective way of removing board threats. Although it does target a card, which kind of sucks, but especially for targeting immune cards. But for Zodiacs, it does interrupt Zodiac plays, and especially if they get the Drancia onto the field, you can Book of Moon that, and then you don't have to deal with monster popping. And most of the Zodiac in defense mode are pretty useless, and they can be run over pretty easily. So there's that also. But not just that, like Book of Moon is a very skillful card to play because it is an inherent -1 the moment you play it, but you have to play it to gain the advantage. And it can protect you, it can allow you to play your turn. It is overall a very fair card. Although there is like cards like Swords of Concealing Light, Book of Eclipse. Book of Eclipse, of course, is a bit more risky to play. Swords of Concealing Light, you can get MST'd and then the effect will go off. Book of Moon is just a much easier choice for us to play, and it's much more versatile since you also can, set in the back row to interrupt the play of your opponent. So Book of Moon actually might have a bit more impact in the upcoming format. Cards going back to 3, I don't want to go too deep into it. Let's just start with Dragon's Ravine. It has very little impact. I don't know why it's still there. Maybe you'll still get one rogue guy playing Baby Rock and Dragoonian Gaydurg and something out Crystal Wings nonstop, but that's that. If they go with that play, it's not exactly a very meta consistent deck. That's okay, you can give it to them. That's their bone. It's been on the list for a bit too long and I don't think it's very relevant. Next up, we have Maxi. Maxi should go back to 3, and honestly, for good reason, especially when you're going to go with a format that's going to be special summon heavy, especially when your tier 0 deck is special summon heavy. Let's just say it deserves to come back. We need the counter to deal with this deck as a hand trap. We need the consistency to see this card in our hand to actually not let it go through. If we don't open it and you give us 3 Maxi, it is our own fault, but then if you kill Maxi and you force us to play other things, well, I guess we still could play Veiler technically, but Maxi would be a very nice choice to, kind of, even the odds against that deck, because that deck can go heavy plus with 1 card, and to even the playing field, you got to give the opponent the ability to counter that on turn 1, because it's going to be very, very difficult for you to maintain your player base without giving them proper precautions to go against Zodiac, and this format will get stale without proper counters. So that's my Maxi. And now it's time for my variety wish list. So this is my wish list to bring back more variety into this game. And starting off with Bottomless Trap Hole. I want 2 Bottomless Trap Holes just because I like playing different kinds of traps to deal with monster removal, and this is a pretty good one. Although against Zodiac Beast, pretty useless. Who cares? I like it. And gives my Rafflesia a second hole to play with. Next up, we have Please. Give us back towers because, well, it doesn't do very much, and killing towers is actually a pretty easy task now. Okay, next up, aside from towers, we have Shrit, Necros. I kind of want to see Shrit come back, maybe hit some other Necros cards, take away our Trish. I would like to see what happens, but Necros is a pretty fun deck to add into this pool of decks that we can play. And with Shrit, let's go with some Shaddoll cards. Just give us back Construct. Construct can come and play. Now, I have a deal for you, Konami. If you take away 2 of my Shadow Mist and give me back 1 Stratos, I'll be pretty damn happy. Just free my stratos, man. No, and I guess that's it. If you guys kind of find my judgment on this Banlist prediction a bit off, you can leave it down in the comment section below. What would you like to see hit, to be honest? Again, leave it down in the comment section below. Have a discussion with everybody. I'm interested to see what you guys think deserves a hit. Or if some of my hits are a bit misguided, well, let me know why it's misguided. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. YouTube has changed once again. If you don't hit the bell, you're not going to get any notifications from MST.TV, and they've changed the way that your feeds work. If you want to stay up to date with MST.TV stuff, hit that bell, hit the subscribe, and I would thank you so much for that, really. And as for anything else, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.